Let's begin with updates on the helicopter crash in Rivers State. The Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau has announced the recovery of 2 additional bodies from the Sikorsky SK76 helicopter that crashed near Port Harcourt, Rivers State. The tragic incident, which occurred on Thursday, has now claimed 3 confirmed lives, while 3 passengers remain missing. The helicopter, operated by East Wind Aviation, was carrying 8 individuals en route from the Port Harcourt Military Base to FPSO NUIMS ANTAN oil rig when it went down over the waterways near Bonny Finima in the Atlantic Ocean at about 11:22 a.m. Rescue operations continue as the NSIB and other agencies work urgently to locate the remaining passengers and determine the cause of the crash. In the meantime, President Bola Tinubu has ordered a stepped-up search and rescue mission for passengers of the helicopter that crashed into the Atlantic Ocean near Bonny Finima, Port Harcourt on Thursday. The helicopter, operated by East Wind Aviation and registered as FNBQG, was contracted by NNPC Limited to transport contract staff to the FPSO NUIMS ANTAN facility. The president called on military personnel in the region to join the rescue efforts, offering support to the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, and other relevant agencies involved. Expressing his condolences to the NNPC's board and staff, as well as the families of those who lost their lives, Tinubu prayed for the repose of 3 victims and comfort for their grieving families. Now, following severe flooding that submerged 9 out of 21 local government areas in Kogi State, north-central Nigeria, residents and the state government are urgently calling for intervention to address the crisis. The floods caused by continuous heavy rainfall and overflowing major rivers have forced many residents out of their homes, with property worth millions of naira destroyed. Our correspondent, Joshua Emerai, visited the affected areas to assess the situation and filed in this report.
The president of Kogi State, north-central Nigeria, recounts the nightmare that has befallen the family due to the severe flooding that has once again submerged the community.
Like 1 week ago, now we sleep for inside in the night. You just see and say, don't bust out. Before we pack our load, all our load don't spoil.
Yusuf Abdullahi, a pensioner residing in Kogi State, has had to defy the floodwater at all costs to get to his home. For more than 25 years, this had been his home, but in the last 12 years, the fear of flooding has been a source of concern.
The first experience we had was in 2012. That came unannounced, and almost half of the estate here was submerged. And since that, at intervals, it comes. Sometimes we don't park, sometimes we park.
It says that each time the floods come, government agencies advise residents like him to move to the designated internally displaced persons camp, a decision which is not easy to bear.
Where we are currently is what used to be the banks of River Niger. This place used to be farmlands to some of the Kogi residents whose homes have been affected by the flooding. Unfortunately, the situation now here is dire as his place has been sacked by the flooding.
At the internally displaced persons camp located at St. Luke's Primary School at Dankolo in Lokoja, the capital of Kogi State, people like Hawa Abib and Aliu Abdul Malik have sought refuge.
As flood packers come here, they sleep, no food, no mattress, no many things, but we thank God for our governor. He helped us yesterday, and he helped us since day before yesterday.
This is the place that we share our food yesterday, where they give us.
How long did they deal with mosquito?
Top. We manage it like that. Even now, if you check around, mosquitoes, they are flying about.
After assessing the situation, we visited Kingsley Farm with the Commissioner of Information for East State to get his perspective on the ongoing crisis.
Going by the devastating situation in the state, it is already snowballing into a humanitarian crisis. And you could see that over 1 million people have been displaced already. The number of IDP camps we could put up right now definitely is not enough to cope with the massive number of people that are displaced by the flood. So it is quite challenging.
The commissioner, however, urged the federal government, corporate organizations, international organizations, and private individuals to step in and provide much-needed relief during this difficult time. In Lokoja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
Away from that to talking about the cost of governance, reactions have begun to trail President Bola Tinubu's reaction and restriction of the official convoys of ministers and heads of departments, including agencies, to a maximum of 3 vehicles. One of the reactions is coming from the League of Northern Democrats, asking President Bola Tinubu to lead by example in the federal government's push to cut the cost of governance. President Tinubu also ordered all ministers of state and heads of agencies to have at most 5 security personnel attached to them. The president instructed the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, to engage with the military, paramilitary and security agencies to determine a suitable reduction in their vehicle and security personnel deployments. Despite this measure, the League of Northern Democrats, which is a political movement, says the Nigerian leader should do more. To discuss this, we are joined by an economist, Lester Wilcox. Lester, it's nice to have you around. So this administration did something similar by announcing a slash in cost of governance and travel Ester codes by 60% in January this year. But the president was still seen in a long list of cars in a convoy. Now it's coming up with the same directive. Are you convinced that this time it will be implemented and exemplified to actually reduce expenditure?
Sincerely, I do not understand why whenever the president talks about cutting cost of governance and everybody is saying he should do on his own. You see, everywhere in the world, like for instance, everywhere in the world, there's a minimum level of a security architecture that must follow the president around. And that's why he has also, I think he has directed the NSA to see how that can be rejigged. You cannot begin to say the president should cut down the aides around him, the security around him. That is the number one citizen. Now, if you're talking about the commission, the ministers, and the other government agencies, yes, one can understand where we are going. The number of convoys of a minister, I don't think a minister should have a convoy. So that, again, is where I'm having a challenge. Why should a minister have a convoy?
For safety reasons, for safety concerns, don't you think that is needful?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I said for safety reasons, don't you think that is needful?
What safety does a minister need? Is a minister, what safety does he need? Now, there is supposed to be a security attaché to a minister, maybe a DSS attaché, just for a minimum security arrangement. So, but what does he need a convoy for? There is this minister, the FCT minister. If you see him going out in Abuja, he's going out like a president. He has expert riders. He has long list of convoy. He goes like a governor. So for me, that is where the abnormality comes in. The president has said that ministers should have a minimum number, a certain number of persons that will accompany them for foreign trips, which is okay, because a minister needs some additional hands to work. But I do not see why a minister should be going to work in the morning and is riding on a convoy of a car. What for?
But they will say,
I don't see ministers.
Alistair, but they will say that they need, their aides, their security details, people who would help them work with their schedules for the day or their tasks. That's why they will need that much hand go along with them.
No, they need a hand in the office. Admit they need an essay, they need a PA, they need maybe a what do you call it? Some assistance. Yes, that's understandable. That's in the office. But I'm talking about a minister going from his house to the office, and he has about five cars going with him. What for? I think we have elevated too many things in this corner. We have allowed too many things to fly, which is not necessary. I don't think anywhere in the country, in another part of the world, I don't know American ministers, American secretaries, how many convoys they have when they travel. I only know about the Secretary of State when he travels out of the country that he has a lot of security. That kind of is understandable, but I don't know why a minister in Nigeria you have a convoy, and you are talking about now the president reduced to 3.
Okay, so Alistair,
what is the convoy supposed?
Alistair, so invariably, are you saying that this directive by the presidency is actually not a realistic cost-cutting measure?
Well, it's a realistic cost-cutting measure to the extent that you might want to say save cost in fuel, save cost in but you're not going to sack those personnel. Most of them, let's also put it this way: most of these personnel that follows the ministers around maybe civil servants or security personnel. So if you reduce them from the minister's convoy, have you also saved the salaries that they're going to pay to them? For instance, if you say the policemen following the minister should go down from, let's say, 5 to 2, the other 3 will have to still be redeployed to other areas, and so you've not saved any much cost. But if you're talking about in terms of logistics, like vehicles, like fueling the vehicles, of course, you are looking at that area. But sincerely speaking, in this country, we have a way of robbing Peter to pay Paul, or pulling woods over our eyes. The area where you are trying to save costs, you might see that some other areas where cost is being, these expenditures are being overdue, something like that.
Yeah.
I remember the issue in the Ministry of Women Affairs. I don't understand why well, this is not part of my discussion, but let me just chip this in. I don't understand the rationale behind the sacking of the Minister of Women Affairs, talking about Barrister Uju.
Yeah, honey. Now, Alistair, because we are actually pressed for time, so if you are not entirely convinced that this will help in reducing expenditure of government, what do you think the government should actually be looking if it is hoping to manage its finances or manage its fiscal purse?
Look, thank you. Very good question. The government should be looking at those frivolities that goes on in the departments and in the ministries, and that's where the issue of what happened in Women Affairs Ministry was. Come to my mind, where government spends billions and millions and millions of naira in conferences, spending money in conferences. Some conferences that have no value, that have no results. And that is the cost of governance. Because what happens in these ministries and in these agencies are worse than when you see a minister driving in a convoy. Yes, it's part of it. But there are those frivolities that goes on. And the minister, the former Women Affairs Minister, exposed some of these things, where people spend millions of naira on conferences, on seminars that has no value. And you see how people were jubilating when she was removed. That tells you something, that the crux of the corruption in this country, the crux of where government should be looking at cutting costs, is right embedded in the ministries. You're right embedded in those departments. You're right embedded within the civil service. I don't know the political leaders. The political heads are just figureheads. But the civil servants, which many people have termed evil servants, they are the main crux of the governance architecture that needs to be dealt with. That for me is just going to go.
Okay.
It's superficial to say you're reducing the minister. Superficial to say you're reducing the cover of a minister. What about the frivolities that goes on within those ministries? Have been reduced? I think that's what we should be looking at.
All right, Alistair Wilcox, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate that.
Thanks for having me. It's always my pleasure. Thank you.
We now leave the Nigerian president and talk about Nigeria's vice president, Kashim Shettima, will no longer attend the 2024 Commonwealth Heads of Government Summit in Samoa following an incident involving his aircraft, according to a statement from presidential media advisor Bayo Ononuga. The vice president's plane was struck by a foreign object during a stopover at JFK Airport in New York, United States, prompting immediate changes to travel plans. In response, President Bola Tinubu has appointed a ministerial delegation led by the Minister of Environment, Balarabe Lawal, to represent Nigeria at the summit. Shettima was initially set to join King Charles and leaders from 56 Commonwealth nations at the summit, scheduled for October 21 to 26 in Apia, Samoa. The aircraft's repair is reportedly underway. Now we'll go on the break on the news. When we return, we'll tell you about Kano courts, which has actually cleared the way for local governments in the state. We'll tell you more about this when we return. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. We tell you that the Kano State High Court has granted the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission, KANSEC, the authority to proceed with the local government elections scheduled for Saturday, nullifying all attempts by political parties to stop the exercise. Justice Sanusi Maji, presiding over the case on Friday, ruled that KANSEC is empowered by the Constitution to conduct, supervise, and oversee local government elections across the 44 local government areas in Kano State. The case was brought to KANSEC against the All Progressives Congress and 13 other political parties. Justice Maji had held that any effort to obstruct the process would be deemed null and void. The judge also called on security agencies to ensure the protection of lives and property during the election. In a related development, Kano State Governor Abba Yusuf has said there is no going back on the planned October 26 local government election in the state. Yusuf made the assertion while presenting NNPP flags to the 44 chairmanship and councillorship candidates at the Sani Abacha Indoor Stadium. According to him, the state will not allow anybody to destabilize the peace being enjoyed by the people. Recall that a federal high court on Tuesday halted the planned elections in the state and dissolved the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission over controversy involving executive officers of the Election Commission being card-carrying NNPP members. Away from that, the Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement, also known as YAGA Africa, has raised concerns over the non-adherence to extant laws during the conduct of local government elections in Nigeria. The group, during a reflection meeting with some chairmen of state independent electoral commissions across the country, says that recently conducted local government elections were marred with violence and voter allocations, including ruling political party dominance. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu reports.
Gathering of election officials at the national and subnational levels. The exercise and appraisal of the recent conduct of local council elections in line with laid down provisions. They identified the uncertainty of the tenure of local government chairmen and their councillors, vote allocations, predictable outcomes and dominance of political parties as some of the fallout of the recent polls at the subnational levels.
The SECs have guaranteed tenure of 5 years that are easily dissolved because a new face has appeared in the government house.
Of course, there's irregular and consistent elections. There is no need to belabor that. But the most topical one, which the entire country has focused on, is this trend of vote allocation, predictable outcomes, and dominance of ruling parties.
For the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, Plateau State local government elections polls deserves a pass mark as it implemented voter verification in its election day.
This is the first time that I saw a local government election that had results from polling units announced, results from the local governments announced.
However, one federal lawmaker in charge of electoral matters at the House of Representatives disregarded this assertion.
My friend here said the last election by one of the states is about the best because it was so fair. But did they use beavers?
They used
guideline. Going by guideline, that means you must use beavers. Going by the guideline, you must have announced notice a year before election. If you go by this guideline, then the issue of independence of SEC would have been secured because funding must be released a year before the election for you.
All eyes are now in Kano, Nasarawa and Zamfara as they prepare to hold their council elections. In Abuja for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Away from election stories, we tell you that former chairman of the National Election Commission, Professor Humphrey Mosu, has passed away at the age of 83. Professor Mosu, who is remembered for overseeing Nigeria's June 12, 1993 election, was often hailed as the nation's freest and fairest person to have served as NEC chairman from 1989 to 1993. The historic election, however, was annulled by the then president, Ibrahim Babangida. Nwosu, a native of Ajali in Urumba, North Local Government Area, Anambra State, was born on October 2, 1941. Although his family has yet to release an official statement, sources close to them confirmed that he passed away early on Thursday at a hospital in Virginia, United States of America. Nigeria's House of Representatives has tasked the nation's apex bank to increase the availability of new 200, 500 and 1,000 naira bills so as to retrieve the old bills still in circulation. This followed a resolution on the floor of the House on a motion of public importance, highlighting the difficulties caused by bill scarcity brought about by the 2023 currency swap. They also called on the Central Bank of Nigeria to direct commercial banks to distribute more of the new notes to citizens while phasing out the old currency notes.
Nigerians will be plunged into more chaotic situations than what happened in February 2023 when the old 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes shall cease to be legal tender and medium of exchange for goods and services as from January 1, 2025. Disturbed that the CBN ought to have started public awareness such as jingles, television and radio announcements, social media postings, flyers, daily newspapers and periodic magazine publications 3 months before the deadline. But now with about 2 months to the deadline, there is nothing to show that the Apex Bank is prepared for the exercise.
In the meantime, the Central Bank of Nigeria has debunked reports claiming that the old series of 200 naira, 500 naira and 1,000 naira banknotes will cease to exist as legal tender by December 31, 2024. In a statement released by the Acting Director of Corporate Communications, C.D. Hakama, the CBN noted that the order of the Supreme Court of Nigeria to extend the use of old naira banknotes still holds indefinitely. He added that such claims are false and calculated to disrupt the country's payment system. The Supreme Court ordered that the old series of 200 naira, 500 naira and 1,000 naira banknotes will continue to be legal tender alongside the redesigned versions. Accordingly, the CBN said all banknotes issued by it will continue to remain legal tender indefinitely. The Defense Headquarters says that Nigeria's troops have recorded tremendous gains in its war against terrorism and crude oil theft. The Director of the Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, made this known to newsmen in Abuja during the DHQ's bi-weekly update, saying that scores of terrorists have been neutralized in the last 1 week as troops continue to push on the offensive. Ahmad Nui reports.
It is the bi-weekly briefing by the Defense Headquarters of Nigeria. The Director of the Defense Media Operations says that troops have recorded tremendous gains across the various theaters of operations and neutralized scores of terrorists.
Looking at the various theaters of operations, during the week under review, troops neutralized 140 terrorists and arrested 135 of them, thereby destroying their fighting capabilities and weakening their military capabilities as well. The troops also rescued 76 kidnapped hostages, which is indicative of our commitment to guarantee the safety and security of citizens, which we will continue to do more of that.
He says that gains have also been made in trying to end crude oil theft, as several perpetrators of crude oil theft were arrested, saving the nation almost 2 billion naira.
In the war against crude oil theft, as well as our effort to boost the nation's daily crude oil production, troops arrested 18 perpetrators of crude oil theft during the week. Troops also denied the theft of crude oil estimated to the sum of 1.7 billion naira during the week. Furthermore, Troops diminished the terrorist capabilities by recovering over 240 assorted weapons and over 3,000 assorted ammunition across all theaters of operations during the week.
He revealed that the operation in the southeast region against the indigenous peoples of Biafra also witnessed successes, as several commanders of the proscribed group have also been arrested. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Business leaders, top government officials and other stakeholders on Thursday brainstormed on the pressing issues confronting Nigeria's trade and investment landscape. This comes as the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs organized a panel session titled Nigeria Trade and Investment Challenges and a Way Out, held in Lagos. News Central's Bettina Nmedi was there and reports.
Nigeria's economic potential is constrained by many structural issues, including high inflation, foreign exchange rate volatility, low productivity, weak governance, and poor infrastructure. As a result, critical stakeholders gathered here at this event organized by the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs as the NIIA Director General, Ehosal Sage, outlined the current state of trade and investment in the country.
So much is happening, not only in Nigeria, but also across Africa and across the entire world of trade and investment and development.
A panel discussion featured prominent voices, including the former governor of Cross River State, Donald Duke, Comptroller General of Nigeria Customs, Bashir Adeniyi, Professor Anthony Killer, among others. They emphasized the need for better access to finance for businesses.
The value of your currency, which is your worth, right, takes a bearing on your productivity. So a nation that hardly produces anything, its currency is literally worthless.
I think the public sector is geared in such a way that they see the private sector as enemies, really. That's why a lot of the things that we should have done are not being done.
The newly built Bashir Adeniyi Center for International Trade and Investment, in recognition of the diligent service of the Comptroller General, Bashir Adeniyi, was also inaugurated.
Over the years, we seem to have paid more attention to generating revenue for its own sake. But what I've seen in the last 1 year is that, well, it is good that we are revenue focused, but we stand better, we would gain better if we address issues around enhancing trade and creating the right environment for trade to prosper.
Now, when you go trading with the outside, the people are interested in how solid, how stable, and how enterprising your trade atmosphere is within. So if you facilitate trade within, you make trade easier. You also make external trade even easier.
Participants express optimism and believe in collaborative efforts to address the outlined challenges, as the insights shared could be seen as critical steps towards unlocking Nigeria's economic potential. In Lagos, for News Central, I am Bettina Nweli.
A bit of health stories now. World Polio Day in Nigeria's state of Borno saw a remarkable gathering of persons living with disabilities and development partners advocating for polio eradication. The event showcased the launch of UNICEF's No More Zero Dose song, which is set to resonate across the state. News Central's Mara Kurawa completes the reports.
The quest to ending polio this time around in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, also saw to the participation of persons living with disability, calling on each and everyone to join the quest to keep polio at zero.
Yau ranar polio day ne, kuma duk inda ka kira polio akwai mu a ciki, saboda mu ne ɗaya daga cikin wanda polio yayi wa illa. Tun muna jarirai ana magana idan aka ja ka auna cutar sai a ce polio ne. To ba ma son abin da ya shafe mu ya shafi yara kanana ƴan uwanmu. Mu ma muna son mu saya shi haka.
In Borno State, according to the Nigerian Demographic and Health Survey, 21.2% of children have been reported to have not taken vaccination, and 26% in the Northeast region as of 2023. This development, according to the United Nations Children's Fund, requires sustained deliberate efforts to address.
Today is a World Polio Day. Together with the government, partners like CDC, WHO, Rotary International, among others, we are happy to be able to celebrate this day. But most importantly also, today we are launching a song called No More Zero Dose. Zero dose are regarded as children who have not received some form of routine immunization. And it's one of the reasons that we are having cases of vaccine-preventable disease like diphtheria, polio, and among others. We are happy to be here, and we are encouraging parents to take their children for immunization. From the time they are born, they need to be vaccinated to be able to prevent diseases that can actually take the lives of children.
The launch of the hashtag No More Zero Dose in Borno featured performances while delivering crucial messages about the importance of immunization.
It's important that all children are fully immunized, that the access from birth and the schedules of different vaccines are there, including measles, so that they are not, they are not infected.
Reaching children who lack access to or are never reached by routine immunization services is what this multi-stakeholder campaign seeks to achieve. Government increased funding for health, and immunization was also encouraged with community engagement. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
The news continues with the story. Chad has denied accusations of fueling the war in Sudan by arming the paramilitary rapid support forces, which have been fighting the Sudanese army for over a year. The allegation came from Sudan's Darfur governor, Mini Minawi, a Khartoum government ally, who claimed Chad was supplying military equipment to RSF-controlled areas. Minawi said he had asked France to intervene and stop Chad's alleged involvement during a visit to Paris. Chad's government, however, rejected the claims. Foreign Minister Abdurrahman Kulamala emphasized that Chad has no interest in exacerbating the conflict and has instead been impacted by it, hosting around 680,000 Sudanese refugees. Outside Africa, we tell you that negotiations over a potential Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal is set to resume in Doha in the coming days. This is according to officials from the U.S., Israel, and Qatar. A spokesperson for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said an Israeli delegation will travel to Qatar on Sunday. It is not yet clear whether Hamas has agreed to participate in the talks. The U.S. believes the death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar last week, seen as one of the group's most extreme figures, may open the door to an agreement, though Hamas has accused Israel of being the primary bloc to any deal. Now, for more on this, we're joined by our chief international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, it's nice to have you around. What is the latest as regards the escalating events that we've seen in Gaza?
Have been quite a few airstrikes in Gaza and in the Lebanese region as well. So an airstrike on a school in central Gaza has displaced Palestinians and left at least 17 people dead. Now, the IDF said it struck this particular school because it believed that this school was sheltering Hamas terrorists and possibly weapons as well. A large number of Palestinians have been evacuated from northern Gaza. Also, lots of those residents are people that were already being previously displaced, and they have been moved again, and that's because there is going to be attacks in that area. Now, the IDF say that they're the most moral army in the world, and they try to evacuate people before they attack their areas. But however, this particular place in northern Gaza that has been evacuated, again, it's at breaking point with medicine, food and fuel in very very short supply. There's also been a polio vaccine program that has been rolled out over northern Gaza that has been put back again and again. And there's a real worry in that particular area that if the second dose of those polio vaccines isn't administered, then all of it will go to waste.
Well, we're hearing that ceasefire negotiations will resume in Doha, Qatar in the coming days. Why is this happening now, and what are the possibilities?
Yes, you so rightly said that peace negotiations are back this weekend, back this Sunday in Doha. It's been over a month since there has been any kind of ceasefire negotiations or any negotiations surrounding the freeing of any of the hostages that were taken on October 7th, 2023. Now, it's thought the death of Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader, is really a catalyst for this because it was believed that he was a real stumbling block when it came to peace. Now, haven't picked a new leader yet or haven't declared one to us. And so, one, there is a bit of a power vacuum in Hamas at the moment, and this is a good time for negotiators to get in to try and feel their way and see what Hamas feels about working towards peace. And if Yahya Sinwar is no longer there and he's no longer that stumbling block, it's now a case of how many more excuses can Hamas give as to why they're not prepared to talk about peace and working towards what people feel will be the best solution for Gaza, for Israel, for Palestine, and potentially that two-state solution. Now, Antony Blinken is in London today. He was meeting with some of the leaders from that part of the world ahead of the meeting on Sunday. And he's been hearing from different leaders on their thoughts on the situation. And most of them saying that the Jordanian Prime Minister especially saying he believes that the ethnic cleansing is taking place in Gaza. Now, he will be taking that information to the negotiating table on Sunday in Doha.
Okay. Now, in all of these talks, the IDF is still talking about their mission in Lebanon. What have they said so far? What is their position?
Well, there have been hints from the IDF that there could be a sharp conclusion to their efforts in Lebanon. Now, overnight, you have 3 journalists who were killed in Lebanon in an airstrike. This was at a guest house that is hosting different journalists in the region, and those 3 journalists have been killed. Now, that is considered a war crime because journalists are protected in the theatre of war, as it were. And so that against this kind of rumor from the IDF that there could be a sharp conclusion, we're not really sure which track they are on because their strikes are continuing. You now have the death of journalists, but the IDF also saying that the offensive in Lebanon could come to a sharp conclusion, could end soon. It hasn't. This past week has really been about taking out the infrastructure behind Hezbollah. So you have banks, communications, those kind of places bombed, as well as the physical infrastructure. And it's been really about taking Hezbollah down, making sure that chain of command is broken once you've taken out the leaders at the top. So again, at the moment, the strikes in Lebanon are continuing, but people certainly hoping that whatever the phrase sharp conclusion means, that could mean the hostilities in Lebanon could come to an end quickly.
Of course, interesting times ahead in the Middle East. We hope that peace can come to that region soon. Thank you so much, Afia Hagen, for the updates. We talk business now. The recent delivery of crude oil to the Dangote Petroleum Refinery under the Naira for Crude Sale Agreement represents a significant milestone for Nigeria's oil and gas sector, indicating a shift towards increased self-sufficiency and reduced reliance on imported petroleum products. However, this progress raises several important questions. On Business Edge, Femi Oladeyin, senior partner at Argentile Capital Management Limited, addressed claims suggesting that the refinery would be unable to sell petrol to marketers unless its agreement with the NNPC is terminated, emphasizing that the refinery can operate independently in the markets.
wants to sell petrol as long as he's producing it. There's no incentive for him to continue to sell just to the NNPC. Now, especially where the price of petroleum products are fully deregulated in the Nigerian market, it's an open market. As long as you're able to fulfill the conditions for buying petrol from Dangote, you should be able to go to his refinery and buy without exposing yourself to any additional cost implications. And again, remember this, Lekan, and this is very important for all our viewers. Everyone wants to be able to make profits. If it's more efficient and effective for people to buy from Dangote refinery, they will buy from him.
We talk sports now. South Africa's captain Ronwen Williams will be heading to Paris for Monday's Ballon d'Or Awards, taking his place among the elite company as he is nominated for the Yashin Award. He is the first South African to feature at the Ballon d'Or, although there have been 4 compatriots nominated for the FIFA Puskas Award for the best goals of the year. The Yashin Award is for the world's top goalkeeper, and Williams, one of this year's 10 nominees, who will be at the Chalet Theatre in the French capital alongside the glitterati of world football, will be present. Williams, nominated primarily for his penalty-stopping prowess at the Africa Cup of Nations finals, is up against current holder Emiliano Martinez, Diogo Costa, Unai Simon, and Inter Milan goalkeeper Jan Sommer, who recently retired from international football with Switzerland and others. Let's also tell you that Manchester United first-team coach Darren Fletcher has been charged with misconduct by the Football Association following his side's 2-1 win against Brentford. Fletcher is alleged to have acted in an improper and/or confrontational manner and using abusive and/or insulting words towards the match officials during the Premier League victory at Old Trafford on October 19. United were furious following Brentford's opener for Ethan Pinnock, which came when defender Matthijs de Ligt was forced to leave the field for a 3rd time to deal with a cut on his head. Manager Erik ten Hag and assistant Ruud van Nistelrooy both received yellow cards for their protests, while Fletcher confronted the officials at halftime as they made their way to the tunnel. And that's all at this hour, but before we go, we look at our top stories again. President Bola Tinubu has directed military to join search and rescue mission following helicopter crash in Port Harcourt. Kano Court has cleared way for local government election in the state. We also told you that Chad has denied allegations of arming rapid support forces in Sudan. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekan Onabanjo.